way that added to the sense of occasion. Pete wondered what it would be like if other sports took their appearance as seriously as snooker players. Surely the world would be a better place if footballers wore tweed and racing drivers sported cravats and sensible shoes. "Which wardrobe?" Mum asked and folded her arms. "Have you been going through your dad's stuff again? You know he doesn't like it when you dress in his clothes. Have you forgotten that time you borrowed his white shirt and he saw you coming down the stairs in the dark and thought it was his own ghost?" Mum shook her head. "I had to chase him around the house for half an hour before I could convince him otherwise." "Well, if you'd just buy me my own snooker outfit, I wouldn't have to," Pete snapped. "There's no such thing," Mum said. "I go into shops and ask for it, and they look at me like I've gone loopy." "Oh, Pete, maybe if you wore normal clothes you might make a friend or two. Wouldn't that be wonderful?" "Bye, Mum," Pete said, folding the shopping list and tucking it into the shallow pocket of his waistcoat, a place normally reserved for a square of snooker chalk. It was true that Pete didn't have any friends. He once had a childhood friend, but that ended when he pushed Pete down a bumpy slide in the local park, resulting in not one, but two grazed knees. Ever since then, Pete, like the Arctic wolf, preferred to operate alone. "Remember the parsnips and the other bits and bobs that I've written down on the list?" Mum shouted after him. "Fine," Pete snorted and headed for the front door. "I bet Mark Shelby never had to put up with this." He stashed the change in his trouser pocket, scrunched the bag for life under his arm, and narrowed his eyes as the bright of day hit him square in the face. "Don't move, or I'll blast you into next week," said a voice from behind a bush in the garden. 2 p.m. "Take my money, my trousers, take it all. Just don't hurt me," Pete wailed. There was a moment of silence. Then Pete got a soaking of epic proportions and promptly fell to the ground. "Ha ha!" The voice yelled and started to laugh. Pete shook his head the way a dog would after getting out of the bath. He wiped the water from his face, eyed up the dastardly villain, and slowly got up. There, on the grass in front of him, was a small boy. He was holding a huge water pistol that was almost twice his size, covered in silver plastic telescopes and levers. It could almost have been the real thing. The boy had stopped laughing and now had a very worried look on his face. He was called Sammy, otherwise known to Pete as his massively annoying next-door neighbour. "I'm completely soaked, you little nincompoop!" Pete yelled. "I've got a good mind to tell your parents, you scoundrel!" Even Pete was shocked by how cross he was. Sammy backed away to the pavement. Pete stumbled towards him, rubbing his eyes, which were still stinging from the water. "Look out!" Sammy shouted. Pete suddenly felt himself being knocked over. He barely had time to yell, "Ah!" before he fell again. "Oi!" a man blurted out as he collided with Pete, sending his bag for life and shopping list flying through the air. The man quickly got up and brushed himself down. "You need to watch where you're going, kid," he sneered. He looked like a man not to be messed with. Dark stubble covered half his face, and he was wearing a pork pie hat, a bow tie, and a coat pulled up around his neck like he was expecting rain. "I'm so sorry. I had water in my eyes," Pete explained. "Sorry!" Sammy shouted and ran over. "It was my fault. I was playing with my friend, Pete." "Wait! We're not friends," Pete started, pausing to pick up his bag for life and shopping list from the pavement. "I don't care how yous know each other," the man said in a gravelly voice. "Just get out of my way. Understand?" He pushed the boys aside and started to carefully scan the pavement. Pete turned around and noticed a piece of paper on the front lawn. "Oh, were you looking for this?" he asked and picked it up. "Thanks," the man said. He stomped over and grabbed the paper before making a hasty retreat. "Well,